get over the loss of life in their family. All of us like the big wins in those big victories that we've been waiting on for a long time, or those impossible situations that turn out in our favor where, you got an impossible situation and God just shows up and He turns the tables and He's a game changer. God is truly a game changer. But in the Christian life, I think we also need to appreciate the little victories along the way. How about like this, a day that you don't give in to an evil temptation? A day where you pray a prayer that you finally prayed. A habit broken. A word that you didn't say that you've been trying to hold back. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Sometimes we say too much and you try to, don't say that. Don't do that. And then you're able to use some self-control. Self-control is something to be prayed for. And when you have that in your life, some self-control, it's a victory. Or a step of just obedience that's taken. That they may not look dramatic, those little victories, those little wins, and no one may notice them, but they are evidence of God at work. God does more than celebrate the finish. He encourages us along the way as we approach the finish line, because we really do need encouragement in this life. Tonight, I want you to see that in 1 Samuel chapter 11, how we do need to give all the glory to God for His blessings, for progress that He brings as He brings about His will. When we're looking at this is a problem that we see in chapter 11. It's their problem. And sometimes it's hard to put yourself into the shoes of an ancient people when they are engaging with the conflicts that they have around them. But I think that when we look at it and when we put ourselves and our minds into this text, that we will be able to relate to it. Tonight we're going to see the favor of God come to rest on Saul. God chose, remember this, God chose Saul to be king, and God's going to use him to show His glory just like He uses people and things in the world today. That's what God does. He shows His glory through His people, and He's going to do that through Saul. In these opening days, we're going to look at the entire chapter very quickly, but these are the opening days of Saul's kingship, and there's a threat of attack that comes from a character called Nahash. Nahash the Ammonite. And then Saul rallies the people, and they defeat Nahash and his men because the Lord delivered them. First thing I want you to see tonight is this threat of attack. And I know you can relate to that because many times in our lives we face threats and we face uncertainty. We face things on the horizon that come along our way, and we feel like, wow, this is big, this is disappointing, this is scary. I have some fear, and that's how they react. They react in fear. There's a threat of a physical attack from this Nahash, an Ammonite, and he threatens attack on a people group called Jabesh Gilead. I don't know a lot about Jabesh Gilead, other than that it was a people group there in Israel. And in verse 1, you see the setting. You see that Nahash brings his people, his army, his troops, and they sit outside of Jabesh Gilead. And then he comes and notice what it says. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, make a covenant with us and we will serve you. And so the people of Jabesh Gilead, they're trying to negotiate with this threat. They think that, well, maybe we can work something out and we'll agree to maybe pay some taxes to you or give you a percentage of our herd or something like that. Just don't hurt us. We don't want to be attacked. And so they'd like to negotiate. So their remedy is a covenant. And you see the response of Nahash in verse 2. His answer is, okay, I'll make a covenant with you on this one condition, and that's if I can put out all of your right eyes. This guy is something else, isn't he? He thinks an awful lot of himself. He's very arrogant. He's very cocky. He has a lot of confidence in that no one's going to stop him. And he is just going to run roughshod over people and take out all their right eyes. In verse 3, you see the response of Jabesh Gilead, the people there. And it says, hold off for 7 days, that we may send messengers to all the territory of Israel. And then if there is no one to save us, we will come out to you. So they're saying, we need some time. Will you give us some time? And I'm not sure, based upon this, I'm not sure if Nahash was very smart or if he was just full of hot air, which you find that sometimes with people. They're more bark than they are bite. And maybe Nahash was more bark than bite. But nonetheless, they agreed to that. So the people here, they're asking for time. And time is an important thing to have. And so it gives them some time to maybe get some help. The second thing I want you to see here is that Saul hears and he acts. Saul hears about this. And in verse 4, these messengers bring news. It says to Gibeah of Saul. Gibeah is Saul's hometown. And so when it says Gibeah of Saul, that's the writer's way of saying this particular Gibeah where Saul lived. And so that's where the messengers come and they bring the news. Saul becomes aware of the trouble in verse 5, and he asks the question, what troubles the people? That they are weeping. When they hear the news, they are weeping. The people of Jabesh Gilead are fearful. Everyone is distraught about this. And then it says in verse 6 that the Spirit of the Lord comes upon Saul. And right here is where Saul jumps into action. Saul moves into action, and the Spirit of the Lord moves into action as well. I think it's very purposeful and intentional that the Bible has them almost moving correspondingly at the same time. Is when Saul takes action, the Spirit of the Lord also comes upon him. This whole scenario here of a possible enemy attack is an opportunity for Saul to gain political favor. Because if you remember in 1 Samuel chapter 8 and verse 20, it was the people that said that we may also be like all the nations, that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles. So this is a political opportunity for Saul to prove himself to the people. We have seen in the last chapter that God has given these little affirmations of his endorsement of Saul as king in these different signs. And now this is probably a similar situation. God's going to use this for his glory. Not necessarily for Saul's glory. It's going to make Saul look good. But God's going to get the glory for it, and you'll see that in just a minute. You see there in verses 6 and 7, the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard this news, and his anger was greatly aroused. So he took a yoke of oxen and cut them into pieces and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, whoever does not go out with Saul and Samuel to battle, so it shall be done to his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell upon the people when they came out with one consent. And you see here that Saul uses some fear tactics to organize the people. In verse 8, Saul numbers the people. In verse 9, there is a message sent to Jabesh Gilead. Notice what it says, and they said to the messengers who came, thus you shall say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow, by the time the sun is hot, you shall have help. And so this message is a little bit of a ruse. What I mean, it's not accurate. it's a false message because there's going to be, the real plan is coming. And so they're talking in terms of tomorrow in the middle of the day, and you'll see it in just a minute. That's not when it happens. In verse 10, Jabesh Gilead sends that false message to Nahash. It says, yeah, we're okay, we're done. We've had enough time, and we will come out and meet you, and you can do what you want to us. In verse 11, Saul organizes these troops, and he attacks the camp of Nahash early in the morning. They don't come in the middle of the day. They come between 2 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Surprise attack. Nahash and his men had probably been out celebrating the night before, knowing that victory was in their hand. And we know Nahash is probably a big blowhard and more bark than bite. And so he probably took for granted and underestimated the whole situation. And Saul capitalizes on this with his army. And it says there that they went into the midst of the camp in the morning watch, and they killed Ammonites until the heat of the day. Just spent a whole morning and all the way to the afternoon just killing Ammonites. And it says there that it happened that those who survived were scattered, so that not 2 of them were left together. There were no groups left. They were all scattered and just one by one out and being hunted down. In verses 12 through 15, the people reflect on this. There is going to be a big celebration, and there's going to be some other thoughts that come along. In verse 12, it says that some of the people remembered, oh, wasn't there some that opposed Saul? Weren't there some people that didn't want him to be king? And now look how good of a king he is. And they said, well, we think that those people ought to be executed. And a little bit surprising for the reader, I think, it's a little bit surprising in verse 13, Saul says, no. We're not going to do that. We're not going to kill people because they were against me. In verse 13, it says, Saul said, not a man shall be put to death this day. And here is one of the best statements Saul has ever made in his entire life. And it's a great statement for any of us to make. And it says this, for today the Lord has accomplished salvation in Israel. Saul said the right thing there, because when we have these victories in our life, all the glory goes to God. It's not going to be because of our own abilities. It's not going to be because of our skills and we were at the right place at the right time. And God forbid that we even use the reason luck. That's not accurate. When those victories come in your life, just like they came in the life of Israel here, all the glory should be given to God. It doesn't matter if it's a big win like this one or a little win of being able to use some self-control and not use your mouth in the wrong way or give into a temptation. Maybe you're trying to quit smoking or using tobacco. Maybe you're trying to quit drinking right now. It doesn't matter what those reasons are. God deserves all the glory for the victories in life. In 14 and 15, we see a little celebration, don't we? We see a big celebration. And Saul here is coronated as king of Israel. You notice in the text that it said Saul and Samuel, Saul and Samuel. And Samuel is definitely a power figure in Israel, and Saul is a rising power figure. He's the king, and he's going to be coronated for all the people to see. Samuel proposes this in verse 14, and he says, come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they made sacrifice of peace offerings before the Lord, and there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts as we come to a close, and it's this, is that you notice that it says they made Saul king before the Lord. And then it says again, it's repeated, they made peace offerings before the Lord. Everything that we do, everywhere we go, everything we say, all of our actions are watched, observed by God. Everything you do, it's not just when you come into this place. Everything we do is before the Lord. He sees it, He's watching, He notices it, and He responds to it. You see there that that all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. They are rejoicing in the Lord because of what the Lord does, what the Lord did there. I've kind of already given this to you, but I want to say it one more time, is that we need to remember to give glory to God for everything. Instead of focusing on the negative aspects of life, like in verse 12, those men or people that said to Samuel, where are the people that didn't like Saul now? That's very toxic. That's very negative. That they're bringing up something that doesn't go along with the situation. The situation now is rejoicing. The situation now is celebrating. The situation now is giving glory to God, yet they're wanting to execute people. That doesn't go along. It doesn't match. It's negativity and it's toxic. And so instead of us focusing on the negative aspects of life, how about this? Give glory to God for what He gives you. And if you can't think of anything to give glory to God about, think about that last breath that you just breathed. That last breath that you just breathed was allowed and permitted because the Lord Himself says, one more second, one more second, one more breath, one more heartbeat. You know, that heart can only beat so many times in your life. You'll only take in oxygen so many times in your life. And there's going to be a day where all of us, our time will come. But we are to give glory to God as long as there's breath in our lungs. Oh, throw out the negativity. Throw it out. How about this? Instead of trying to fix what is not broken, accept what is given and be thankful. Be thankful for what God's given you. Quit trying to fix stuff. Quit trying to rearrange it. Accept what God has given you. Be thankful. I know I've had that in my life, a little bit of discontent. As I get older, I feel like I'm starting to learn to be a little more content with some things. But it's a human characteristic sometimes to be, and it's a sinful characteristic, to be discontented with what you don't have. A second thing besides give glory to God is this: celebrate the victory that God gives. In verses 14 and 15, there's an awesome celebration there. It's a time of joy, a time of rejoicing, a time of celebrating. And they do this before the Lord. Don't take progress and blessing for granted, because it came from God. Pay attention to what's happening around you, and if you'll give glory to God for the great things in life, you probably will be a lot happier, and you'll have that same joy that these people had when they recognized that God was working in their lives. And this is the last thing I'm going to give you tonight. It's big. When God is in it, you know what I mean? When God's in it. I have in my notes here involved, but I think you know the phrase, when God's in it, a lot better. When God's in it, look at verse 6. Then the Spirit of God came upon Saul. You see that? God's in that. The Spirit of God came upon Saul. Saul's action and the moving of God are hand in hand here. It's almost like a dance, isn't it? To where when I move, you move. when God moves, Saul moves. God's in that. He is in that. And here is the good news. When God's in it, it cannot fail. I'm going to ask our musicians to come. We're going to have a song of invitation tonight. If you will stand tonight as we sing.